Meet the Wheelers, so brave and so true. A mystical journey is waiting for you. Dad Arthur can fix it, Mom Ellie can steer. With Max and with Lily, there's nothing to fear. Barley's our dog, a magic retriever. 3 wishes a day for the magic believer. I'm Elias, your guide to this grand library. Buckle up, friends, let's make history.
Step closer, travelers. The library is humming tonight with a strange, celestial energy. I've just found a volume that feels lighter than air. The compass key. You see, the Wheelers have discovered an artifact that doesn't point north. It points toward the truth. In a world of shifting paths, this golden key only turns when the heart is steady. But as the family is about to learn, the universe only gives answers to those brave enough to ask the right questions. Take a deep breath. Let's see where the stars are leading the Wander Wagon tonight. The compass key. An answer from the universe. Part 1. The question in the dust. The morning in the Valley of Giant Ferns felt like waking up inside a prehistoric dream. Massive, emerald green fronds, some as tall as the Wander Wagon itself, curled over the campsite, dripping with silver dew that caught the first rays of the pale sun. The air was thick and sweet, smelling of damp earth and ancient moss. It was the kind of place where time seemed to move slower, as if the world were holding its breath. Dad Arthur was already busy under the chassis of the van, the rhythmic clank, clank, clank of his wrench echoing through the quiet valley. Mom Ellie sat nearby on a folding stool, her brow furrowed as she tapped the glass of her brass navigator, trying to coax a signal out of the dense magnetic mist that clung to the ferns. On the metal steps of the trailer, Max and Lily sat side by side. Max was whittling a piece of soft cedar wood, but his eyes kept wandering to the jagged, charcoal-colored peaks that loomed in the distance. The black crags. "Hey, Lily," Max said suddenly, his voice breaking the stillness. He blew a stray wood shaving off his knee and looked at his younger sister. "Have you ever thought about it? I mean, really thought about it. When we finally finish traveling across the whole world, what do you see your life being like? Who do you want to be in the future?" Lily didn't answer right away. She pulled her knees up to her chin, her gaze fixed on a small blue beetle crawling across a giant leaf. She looked out at the horizon, where the green of the ferns met the dark, mysterious stone of the mountains. "I don't know, Max," she whispered, her voice barely louder than the rustle of the leaves. "The world is just so big. There are so many roads, so many cities, and so many secrets. I feel like I'm just a tiny speck in the middle of it all. I just don't know where my path is leading." A heavy, thoughtful silence hung in the air between them. It wasn't a sad silence, but it was filled with the weight of a big, unanswered question. Just then, Barley came charging through the underbrush. The golden retriever was in high spirits, leaping over fallen logs in a frantic chase after a shimmering blue dragonfly that darted like a bolt of lightning. The dragonfly led him straight into a dense thicket of ancient ferns, vibrating with heavy golden pollen. Barley skidded to a halt in the middle of a golden cloud. The pollen tickled his nose, and his ears began to twitch. "Achoo!" The first sneeze sent a ripple through the ferns. "Achoo!" The second sneeze shook the dew from the leaves like falling diamonds. "Achoo!" On the third and most powerful sneeze, Barley's leather collar erupted in a brilliant, pulsing golden light. The children shielded their eyes as a shower of magical sparks rained down onto the grass. As the light faded, a heavy metallic thud sounded in the soft soil. There, resting in the dirt, was a magnificent object. It was a long, heavy key made of a strange, shimmering moon metal that seemed to glow with its own internal moonlight. It was cold to the touch, and its handle was carved into the shape of a compass rose. "Whoa," Max breathed, reaching down to pick it up. As soon as his fingers closed around the metal, his hand began to shake. Not from fear, but from a powerful magnetic tug. The key wasn't just a tool. It was alive with energy. It pulled his arm toward the black crags with the strength of a falling tide. "It's a sign," Ellie said, standing up and looking at Lily with a knowing smile. "Sometimes the universe doesn't wait for you to find the answers. Sometimes it sends the answer to you." The journey had begun, and the key was already leading the way. The Compass Key, an answer from the universe. Part 2. The Wall of Silence and the Sapphire Sight. The journey toward the Black Crags was not a simple hike. It was a slow, deliberate march dictated by the pull of the moon metal key. As they left the soft, green safety of the Valley of Giant Ferns, the ground beneath the Wander Wagon's tires turned from rich soil to jagged, volcanic glass. The air grew thinner, carrying the sharp, metallic scent of ozone and ancient stone. Dad Arthur drove with a focused intensity, his knuckles white on the steering wheel as the van climbed higher and higher into the mist. In the passenger seat, Mom Ellie watched the key in Max's hand. It wasn't just vibrating anymore. It was singing, a low melodic hum that resonated through the very chassis of the vehicle. "It's getting stronger," Max whispered, his arm extended toward the windshield as if the key were a leash pulling him forward. "It feels like it's hungry to reach something." Eventually, the road simply ended. The Wander Wagon came to a halt in front of a colossal, vertical face of obsidian stone. The black crags towered above them, disappearing into a ceiling of swirling, violet clouds. The wall was perfectly smooth, polished by eons of wind and rain until it shone like a dark mirror. There were no cracks and no ledges. Arthur stepped out of the van, his boots clicking sharply on the stone. He walked up to the wall and pressed his palm against the cold surface. He moved left, then right, searching for a seam, a lever, or even a hidden keyhole. But there was nothing. Just a vast, impassable silence. "We're at a dead end," Arthur sighed, looking up at the impossible height of the cliff. "The key is pulling us directly into the mountain, but unless we can turn this van into a ghost, we aren't going through that stone. Barley, we're stuck, buddy. We need to see what's hidden. Can you help us find what are we missing there?" Barley looked up at Arthur, then at the dark wall. He stood up and let out a low, thoughtful woof. He began to pace in a tight circle, his paws clicking rhythmically, tap, 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 against the volcanic glass. The air around him began to shimmer with that familiar, golden static electricity. His leather collar started to pulse, not with the sharp light of the morning, but with a deep, royal gold that seemed to soak into his fur. He stopped directly in front of the smooth obsidian face. He took a massive, chest-filling breath, his ribcage expanding until he looked twice his size. "Achoo!" The first sneeze echoed off the cliff like a gunshot. Crack! "Achoo!" The second sneeze sent a wave of golden heat rippling through the air, melting the frost on the nearby stones. "Achoo!" On the third sneeze, a brilliant flash of sapphire blue light erupted from Barley's muzzle. It wasn't a scatter of sparks this time, but a focused beam of energy that solidified before it even hit the ground. With a heavy clink-clack, a strange object tumbled onto the dark stone. Arthur hurried forward and picked it up. It was an ancient, heavy lantern. Its frame was made of dark, weathered brass, but the glass wasn't glass at all. It was a single, giant, multifaceted sapphire crystal. There was no candle inside, Yet the heart of the crystal glowed with a restless, swirling indigo flame. "A lantern?" Max asked, leaning in close.
Not just a lantern. Arthur realized, his voice hushed with awe. He lifted the device and pointed it toward the obsidian wall. As the blue light touched the stone, the mirror began to change. The sapphire rays didn't reflect. They penetrated. Beneath the blue glow, the solid rock became translucent. Hidden symbols, glowing with the same moon metal light as the key, began to appear deep within the stone. In the very center of the blue beam, the outline of two massive, arched gates emerged, hidden by a camouflage of ancient magic. At the center of the gates was a single, star-shaped indentation. Max held the key up. The moon metal rose on the handle began to glow in perfect harmony with the sapphire light of the lantern. The key wasn't just pulling anymore. It was singing a triumphant, high-pitched note that shattered the silence of the crags. "It wasn't a dead end," Lily whispered, her eyes wide as she watched the hidden door reveal itself. "It was just waiting for us to be ready to see it." Arthur stepped forward, the blue lantern in one hand and his other guiding Max's hand toward the lock. As the key slid into the star-shaped hole, the entire mountain seemed to exhale a deep, tectonic sigh. The obsidian didn't grind or stone on stone, it dissolved like mist. The gates swung inward, revealing a path into the heart of the mountain, lit by the glowing dust of 1,000 years. The Compass Key, an answer from the universe. Part 3. The Star Dome and the Mirror of Heart's Desire. The obsidian gates didn't just open. They dissolved into a shimmering veil of dark light, inviting the Wheeler family into the silent heart of the Black Crags. As the Wander Wagon crept forward, its headlights cutting through the ancient dust, the tunnel began to widen into a space that defied the laws of geology. They weren't in a cave anymore. They had entered the Star Dome Observatory, a cathedral of stone carved by a civilization that seemed to have worshipped the very concept of the horizon. High above, the ceiling wasn't made of rock. It was a perfect, transparent dome of crystal, revealing a sky where the stars were twice as large and 10 times as bright as any they had seen from the road. The starlight fell in long, silvery pillars, illuminating a floor of polished white marble that rippled like the surface of a frozen lake. In the absolute center of the hall stood a lone pedestal of unblemished alabaster, and upon it sat a chest of dark, iron-bound oak. Dad Arthur killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy, yet it hummed with a strange, expectant music. Lily stepped out of the trailer first, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She could feel the moon metal key in Max's hand vibrating so intensely it sounded like a beehive. "Go on, Max," Arthur whispered, his voice echoing in the vastness of the dome. "This was always for you two." Max walked to the pedestal, his shadow stretching long across the marble. He held the key up, and the star-shaped handle began to pulse in time with the starlight above. With a steady hand, he slid the moon metal into the lock. Click, chime. The sound wasn't the grating of metal on metal. It was the clear, ringing note of a silver bell. The lid of the chest swung open of its own accord, revealing a bed of deep indigo velvet. There, resting in the center, was the mirror. It was a simple, circular glass held in a frame of ancient, salt-crusted driftwood. It looked humble, almost ordinary, until the light of the sapphire lantern touched its surface. Then, the glass didn't reflect the room. It began to swirl with the colors of 1,000 sunsets. Ellie was the first to look at the mirror. She saw a vast, uncharted continent rising from a turquoise sea, a land of golden peaks and singing forests. In the reflection, she was planting a flag on the highest summit, her living map finally complete, having found the one place the rest of the world had forgotten. "Mirror of Heart's Desire," Mom Ellie whispered, stepping closer. Look into it, one by one. It doesn't show you what you have. It shows you the truth of your soul. Arthur looked next. In the glass, he didn't see the tired driver in grease-stained overalls. He saw himself as the master mechanic of the world, standing before a machine made of gears and starlight, a man capable of fixing not just engines, but the very flow of time itself. He smiled, a deep sense of peace settling over him. Max stepped up, his chest puffing out. In the mirror, he saw a figure in a radiant hero's suit, standing atop a crumbling ledge to catch a falling star. He wasn't just a boy in a van. He was a guardian, a protector of the weak, the bravest soul in the galaxy. Finally, it was Lily's turn. She approached the mirror with trembling hands, the question from that morning still echoing in her mind. Who do I want to be? She looked into the glass. The indigo mists cleared, and Lily gasped. She saw a woman standing on the prow of a magnificent, wind-swept ship. The woman wore a navigator's coat and held a telescope made of bone and silver. Behind her were lands no one had ever named, and before her was an ocean that stretched into infinity. She saw herself as a great pathfinder, a pioneer who didn't just follow roads, but created them. She saw that her not knowing wasn't a weakness. It was the hunger of a true explorer who wanted to see it all before choosing where to stop. As they walked back to the wander wagon, Barley trotted beside them, his golden fur glowing in the starlight. He gave a final, satisfied hoof and a small, regular sneeze. The obsidian gates solidified behind them, hiding the observatory once more. Well, Arthur said, starting the engine, which now hummed with a new, melodic power. I believe we are done here. Now we need to find a place where we can rest. Ellie stepped toward her daughter, placing a gentle, grounding hand on her shoulder as Lily finally pulled her gaze away from the shimmering glass. Lily, just look at all of this, Ellie said softly, her voice echoing through the starlit hall. Do you remember our talk on the steps of the wagon this morning? You told Max you didn't know where your path was leading. You felt like a tiny speck in a world far too big for you. And think about what happened exactly 1 second later. Mom smiled, glancing down at Barley, who was huffing contentedly at their feet. Barley sneezed, and that key fell right at your feet. At the time, we thought it was just another bit of his accidental magic. But I see it now. The universe didn't just give us a tool. It heard you, Lily. Your I don't know wasn't a sign of weakness. It was the call of a pioneer. This key and this mirror are the answer to your doubt. You were never lost. You were simply standing on the threshold of your greatest story. And the world decided to wink at you, saying, keep going. You're exactly where you belong. Lily looked out at the dark silhouette of the black crags and smiled. She still didn't know where the road ended, but for the first time in her life, she was perfectly okay with that. The universe hadn't sent the key to give her a destination. It had sent it to show her that she was already on the right path. The book closes for today. The glow of the key has faded, and the stars are back in their places. It's a powerful lesson, isn't it? That the most reliable map we possess isn't made of paper, but of the peace we find within ourselves. The Wheelers didn't just find a way out tonight. They found a way forward. But for now, let the silence of the Great Plains settle over you. The book closes for today. The end of this tale is just the beginning of our next journey. See you in the next adventure. This was Elias. Sleep well, and let your dreams be your guide. Good night.